Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, these primates are in need of help. Most lemurs are endangered, but there are places that are doing everything they can to protect these unique animals. We take a tour of the Lemur Conservation Foundation. This animal may have crab in its name, but as our Inspector Planet has discovered time and time again, names can be deceiving. And when the temperature starts to rise, you need to watch your pets. In this episode of Ask the Vet, the doc explains how to prevent heat stroke in our pets.
Heat stroke can happen anytime the pet can't get out of the hot sun.
This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. They come in amazing shapes and colors. And with more than 100 different species, I can just about guarantee you haven't seen or heard of most of them. Lemurs are one of the most endangered group of mammals on Earth. But there are places dedicated to these primates, like the Lemur Conservation Foundation in Mayaca City, Florida. Eric, what is that noise? This is deafening.
That was loud. That was the red ruffed lemur. That's their roar shriek chorus. It's one of these incredible loud vocalizations that a few lemurs make.
So Eric, we are being scrutinized, aren't
Indeed,
we?
Indeed, yes. No, well, this is the alpha female. This is Ansel. That's why I'm speaking softly. Females are in charge of these groups. Lemurs are often female dominant. It's not true of all the species, but it's definitely true of the ring-tailed lemur. And this species of lemur is Madagascar's national animal. They're a very special one. They're maybe one of the most well-known lemurs. They're much more terrestrial. They spend a lot more time on the ground, and they're a little more aggressive too, particularly the females. So as a male, I'm being careful around our alpha female Ansel here. She's a special one, you know. She came from Canada. Her genes are more unique. We always strive for genetic diversity. That's a real primary goal of AZA certified facilities like we are, that you pay close attention to the genetic diversity of the animals that you're breeding. And now they do it in very systematic ways. Ansel has been a very productive female. She's had a lot of offspring here. We're very proud of the breeding success we've had here. Ansel has had, she was a little bit famous because I think for at least 5 years running she had twins, which you expect once in a while, but she had twins for 5 years running. She's been a very productive individual here and a beloved alpha female in the group.
So now we have another tail hanging
Indeed
from
we
the tree.
do. Indeed we do. Oh, I'm so glad that he's so easy to find. This is the red ruffed lemur. They are one of our two critically endangered species. The red ruffed lemurs and the mongoose lemurs are the two rarest lemurs that we have here. Right now he's engaging what we call sunning behavior. Looks like he's lounging, taking a break. It's actually something a little bit unique called sunning behavior. Not all the lemurs do it, only some of them do it. They really struggle to stay warm. We're not entirely sure why, but lemurs have a variety of ways in which they try and manage their thermal regulation. And one of the ways is to stretch out in a sunny spot and get a lot of sunshine. And it looks
sunbathing.
Sunbathing, exactly. Yeah. But they need it. You know, I don't know if we like to do it. I don't know if we need it. They need it. This species does live in a very wet rainforest. In Mashwala National Park, they're threatened by a lot of things. They've been impacted by illegal rosewood and ebony logging, which has been a problem for this species. They're hunted for food. They're hunted by the loggers as well. They're one of the species that people are more worried about in Madagascar, and we're lucky that they're a species that does well in managed breeding situations like what we have here outside of Madagascar.
You know, you talk so much about the carefulness of the genetics, and it is so imperative. And I understand that somewhere in the United States for this, there's a stud book.
That's right. Absolutely.
Which
that's right.
is very unique,
yes,
isn't it?
Indeed,
so
indeed.
somebody somewhere knows the genetic makeup of all of these.
Exactly. And there are, I think, 600 or 700 red ruffed lemurs in the United States at AZA approved facilities. And there is a single stud book manager who has this book. It's kind of like Match.com. So it's done very systematically. We don't breed all our animals all the time. We wait for a breeding recommendation from the stud book managers, and it's done in a careful, systematic way.
Now we're in this beautiful area. How many acres are we talking?
This is Toomey Forest. It's one of our 2 large forests. Toomey Forest is about 9 acres. Okay. Our entire property now that we own 120 acres. We wanted to have a nice buffer zone around each forest, just as to give the lemurs some sense of security. Yeah.
And what do we have here? Is this native Florida, or did you import some things?
Actually, we recently completed a very intensive botanical inventory, and it was great to hear that what we have is really old-growth native Florida forest with very few invasive species. So we're quite happy with that. There are some things we're working on. We're trying to grow a 3rd forest, as we're rather space limited right now. We're looking to build some new enclosures, but these are nice, beautiful forests. The lemurs that we have here were all born in the United States. So, you know, native vegetation from Madagascar would be foreign to these individuals. But most of their diet is coming from a veterinary-approved primate biscuit, along with fresh vegetables and a little bit of fruit, in addition to a little bit of nibbling they do in the forests. But they don't eat a whole lot out here. Mainly, it's a place for them to behave naturally. Their home ranges, you know, their natural home range size in Madagascar would be something like 100 acres. The beauty of a reserve like this is that we have forests where they can free range, and there's very few facilities like this in the world. And because they can free range, they exhibit a lot more natural behavior. They're not scared of us. They're not running from us. They're ignoring us and staying in close proximity, and that's what you want. We have Javier and Louisa. They are mongoose lemurs, critically endangered mongoose lemurs. We have 18 individuals here. That's quite a lot. We have more mongoose lemurs than any other institution in the world. And it's because we're concerned about them. Mongoose lemurs are now critically endangered. They're among the rarest animals in the world. They're found in northwestern Madagascar, but we maintain where they're in trouble. They have become very hard to find in the national park, in Ankara Fonseca National Park in northwestern Madagascar, and people have become increasingly worried about them in the wild. And we're extremely fortunate that we have had a lot of breeding success here over the past decade.
What is life expectancy for the lemurs?
It's higher in outside of Madagascar in managed breeding situations like this, up until early 30s.
Okay, so they're with us for quite a while.
Yeah, they are long-lived primates.
And I have to ask you, these guys have the most interesting necklaces on them, but I'm sure it's not decorative.
That's right.
It's there for a purpose.
That's right.
And it is?
Yes, well, we put radio collars on all of our lemurs so that we can keep track of them. Anytime you have an animal in a forest like this, they can be hard to find sometimes. And we like to be absolutely sure that we know where each animal is at the end of the day. And even during the day. So the radio collars, we don't use them all the time, but it provides a measure of security for the animals. It's really for the animals, for their security, and they do well with them.
Is this one missing a leg?
Indeed he is.
Okay.
Good eye.
But he
should have pointed that out.
He doesn't show it, but when he turned a certain way, I thought, he's doing much better than I am on too.
No, he's a ringtail lemur named Goose, and he's a young male who was injured, but he has survived and done really, really well. It's hard to believe because lemurs were not as rare when I started working in Madagascar 18 years ago, but now it is true that 95% of lemur species are threatened with extinction. And that's an official designation by the IUCN, and it's really a scary proposition. You know, it gets a little worse every year, and we're doing our best to raise them here in a safe environment where we have a genetic safety net with the possibility of reintroduction in the future, but also to serve as an educational hub.
Now, you talk about personality and character. There it is, personified.
Absolutely. They are just beautiful. Aside from the fact that lemurs are the rarest group of mammals in the world now, aside from all that, aside from the fact that they're the only female dominant primate, they only mate one day the whole year, which is unusual for primates, they're just drop dead gorgeous. They're just beautiful animals that are innocence in the problems that we face in Madagascar due to human poverty primarily and unstable political environments. They're just bystanders that are impacted, and we're doing our best to save these gorgeous critters.
Lemurs can only be found wild in one place, an island called Madagascar. For more information on the Lemur Conservation Foundation and how you can help, log on to their website.
What is this? Dye? Soap? Windex? Blood. Coming up next.
Every dog deserves a lifelong loving home. Dante's Den provides a pristine, comfortable haven for dogs that have been abandoned or surrendered by their owners. We ensure that every pup in our Joyful Dogs adoption program receives lots of love and attention, is properly immunized, spayed or neutered, and is in good health. Prospective pet parents undergo a thorough adoption review to ensure a lifetime of love and care. Find your new furry best friend at Dante's Den. For more information, go to dantesden.org or call 844-DANTES-DEN. Dante's Den, continuing the love. Science is everywhere, and it's all around us. It's observing the world, forming questions, and the willingness to find the answers. It's something our Inspector Planet does every day, and you can too.
Hi, my name is Dr. Tracy Finara. I'm an environmental engineer, which means that I use different scientific disciplines to protect the environment, humans, and wildlife. At Mote Marine Laboratory, I use investigation and myth-busting to answer questions.
These things are awesome. One of the best things about living in Southwest Florida is being around these animals that predate dinosaurs. They're called horseshoe crabs, but the question is, are they actually crabs? Tell me about the coolest fact that you know about horseshoe crabs.
So these guys are actually older than the dinosaurs. So people can find fossils that are very, very similar to what they look like now. Now that doesn't mean that they actually live as long as the dinosaurs. They live about 20 years. But
that's a long time.
Yeah. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. So they didn't evolve past what they were like when they were like the dinosaurs.
That's true. Do they have any predators?
They do. They're very commonly eaten in their coastal ecosystem. A lot of animals actually go for their eggs though. So a lot of migrating shorebirds will use them kind of as a gas station. They'll kind of stop along and they'll eat all the eggs that they lay on the beach. And then sea turtles and even sharks will eat the adults.
They look kind of dangerous. Is it okay if I pick them up?
You can pick them up, just be really careful. They aren't going to hurt you. They have those long tails, and sometimes people think that that's to hurt you.
They look kind of spiny.
It's actually, they have the long tails because they're really clumsy, so if they flip themselves over, they need to flip themselves back over. They don't have hands.
It's more of a protection mechanism,
yeah,
and a fear factor, because I tell you what, I've stayed away from them because of their spiny tails.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just be really gentle.
They don't have any crabs or claws on the
Nope,
bottom?
they don't have any claws.
They don't have any claws. That's interesting. Oh my gosh, you gotta feel this is crazy. It feels like it's gonna pinch me and then it never pinches. It never pinches. Can I flip them over to see the bottom?
Yeah, just be really gentle.
Okay.
So if you look closely.
Oh, he doesn't like that.
So they have 6 sets of legs.
6 sets of legs?
And you can see there's no big pinchers.
That's really interesting. So these guys, they're little pinchers. And what about their mouth? Where is their mouth and where is their eyes?
So their mouth is right in the middle here, and they use these chelicerae to move their food into their mouth.
Wow.
And they actually have 10 eyes.
Wait, they have 10 eyes?
Yeah.
That's very unlike a crab.
So they have two eyes that are similar to ours. They're called compound eyes.
Okay.
And then they have 8 other eyes that can track light, and some of them can even see UV light.
That's interesting. That's more like a spider.
Yeah.
So we found this on the beach and we were super sad, but then really interested because if you touch it, it almost feels like it's hollow. Is this what happens when horseshoe crabs die?
So this is actually what we would call a molt. So horseshoe crabs, they can't grow like we do. So how I like to call it is it's kind of like outgrowing your clothes. So when your clothes get too tight, you go and buy new ones, but they can't buy new clothes. So what they do is they build new clothes for themselves. So they'll build their new shell, and it's really soft. It's almost like paper thin. And then when they're ready to get new clothes or a new shell, they'll actually swell with water, and it makes this big crack here. So then their whole new body will crawl out and they'll leave their old body behind. So they make all new body parts, and all of it comes with them.
So this isn't actually a horseshoe crab. This is just a molt.
Yep. So that's what they leave behind when they grow older.
That's so interesting. So they molt like snakes or reptiles. They have eyes like spiders. They have little pinchers like crabs, and they have a tail like a ray. What is this thing?
So I have one more cool thing to show you.
Yeah?
I have a vial of horseshoe crab blood.
What? Wow. Well, this definitely gives us some insight. Horseshoe crab blood is used in human medicine all the time. It is a bacteria coagulant. In fact, horseshoe crabs are able to lose over 1/3 of their blood and still survive. There are laboratories all over the world taking this horseshoe crab blood from horseshoe crabs and using it for human medicine. So we're putting all the information that we've gathered together. Horseshoe crabs have blue blood. They have a ton of legs, 10 eyes, chelicera. It seems like they're more related to arachnids than crabs. In fact, horseshoe crabs aren't a crab at all. They're more related to the tarantula than they are to your common crab. Remember guys, anyone could be a scientist or an engineer with some passion, hard work, and innate curiosity of how the world works. Hashtag not a crab.
Dr. Tracy comes up with some very interesting topics, and we know that there are some budding scientists out there watching us right now. So we thought we'd answer some of your questions.
Hi, Endangered Planet! Hi, Dr. Tracy. My name is Braxton. What animal has the highest blood pressure?
Hey Braxton, what a great question. And you may not know it right now, but you likely already know the answer. Think about what the tallest animal on Earth is. If you said giraffe, you're right. A giraffe can stand more than 17 feet tall. Think about a giraffe's heart would have to pump blood up that 7-foot tall neck. It has to go a long way, and that takes a lot of work. So it's no wonder that the giraffe is the animal with the highest blood pressure. Humans' ideal blood pressure is 120/80, but for a giraffe, it can get to 300/200.
Hi, Dr. Tracy. My name is Rashawn, and I was wondering, why are fish so slimy?
Rashawn, you're right. Fish are slimy, and if you've ever touched one, you'll notice they feel oily. Fish have a mucus coating on their body, and while it may feel icky to you and I, that slime coat or glycoprotein actually protects the fish, helping keep away parasites and covering up and protecting any scrapes and wounds the fish might get. Some fish use their slime to protect themselves from attack by basically making a cocoon out of it, covering their entire body, while other fish have a toxin in their slime. So if a fish goes to take a bite, well, it won't end up very good for them.
Thanks, Inspector Planet!
Getting too hot can cause heat stroke in humans. But what about your pet? Dr. Glassman is up next, showing us how to keep your pet safe in the heat. Summer can be scorching, especially if you live here in Florida. Not only can those hot temperatures be brutal for you and I to go outside, but it can also be problematic for your pets too. Dr. Glassman, spring and summer are upon us, even here in Florida, and the temperatures are going to soar. What do we do if our dog or cat gets a heat stroke, and what are the signs?
Well, heat stroke is certainly very serious, very deadly disease. In Florida, I wouldn't be surprised if we might not have it close to year-round. I guess a bright sunny day, even on a day that may only be 65, 70 degrees, if you have a pet, especially a dog that might be in a yard without any real shade or shelter, just the sun baking straight on you, and especially maybe if you're black instead of a light color, you're going to absorb more heat. But yeah, heat stroke can happen anytime a pet can't get out of the hot sun. And it can happen pretty quickly, and cars too. Of course, we've all heard about people and unfortunately humans dying from heat stroke in cars. But outside, pretty much if you have some adequate shade, whether it's natural trees or bushes, and there's plenty of water available and the pet can drink and cool itself off, you hopefully won't have an issue. But sometimes it happens. First signs would be panting heavily, okay? Just being collapsed and struggling to breathe would be maybe more advanced signs. If you think your pet has heat stroke, the first thing I would do is throw a bunch of cold water on the pet, okay, because that pretty much couldn't hurt anything. So cool water, especially around the head and the neck, because the problem with heat stroke is literally your body internally starts heating up. The average temperature of a pet is 101 to about 102.5. But if you start climbing 106, 107, 108, your brain actually starts to get cooked, literally, and your brain dies. It damages the nerves. So really cooling the head and the neck is very important, but the whole body in general. And I would certainly, of course, run your pet to the veterinarian where we can do other things. We can do IV fluids. We have other ways of cooling internally a little bit, but very serious, and never let your pets outside without adequate shade and water, of course, to drink.
Now, everybody in the area, shall we say, loves to walk their dog. but in those hot temperatures, it's probably the worst thing that we could do.
Yeah, even just, right, you could be walking, but you're pretty much probably in the constant sun, so I wouldn't take my dogs on long walks, especially if they're not used to it, in direct sunlight, and especially what are called the brachiocephalic, the flat-faced breeds. They overheat very easily because literally the back of their throat doesn't have as much room as your average dog. They've got this big tongue and a small airway, and if there gets a little inflammation in the back of the throat, then it even gets more narrow. So yeah, the short, flat-faced breeds, the pugs, anything like that.
Pomeranian.
Yeah, they have a little bit, maybe a little bit of a longer nose, but pugs, the Boston Terriers, the Bulldogs, yes. Yeah, all the flat-faced breeds are certainly much more prone to have trouble breathing. Whether it's heat stroke or not, they can get into a respiratory crisis if they're not used to the exercise.
Now, if we want to take our dog for a walk, of course, we see everybody walking them on the pavement. Should we try to get them onto the grass?
Yeah, I would certainly walk your dogs on the grass. The pavement, if they're not used to it, then they'll have calluses built up on their pads from regular exercise, and you take your pet out for a 2-mile walk and they're not used to it, I would stay off the concrete. Certainly the asphalt, the black asphalt's too hot in the sun, of course. But even the white cement, if they're not used to it, you can really make their pads quite raw and cause a real problem. So yeah, I try to walk my dog when I do it onto the grass alongside the sidewalk.
So walk on the grass, get some cold water, just in case, and walk early.
Yeah, keep water with you, that's for sure.
And walk early in the morning and later at night.
Sounds good.
Stay with us. There's more Animal Outtakes coming up next. Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org. We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching.
Rosie, you're so sweet. I'm not scared, it's just funny.